Hello, welcome to what is the first episode of the Talktagon. We will discuss UFC news and everything going on in and outside of the octagon. My name is Ty O'Keefe. I currently contribute MMA content to both Fan-Sided MMA and the Fight Network. And tonight we will be joined by my co-host, who will be co-hosting the show permanently with me, Craig Allen. He hosts the very successful Fight Night Picks podcast. And Craig, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm really excited to be on Dialogue. I've actually got a show on here right now, hitting above the Mendoza line, and like you mentioned, host of Fight Night Picks podcast on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. And I also have articles on FightNightPicks.net as well. So thanks for having me.
Well, no problem. And before we get started, I just want to, mention that this call is brought to you by Dialogue. I use Dialogue because it's got limitless potential, I think, for our market. There's a lot of MMA fans who I think want to, digest short spurts of podcasts and not listen to an hour or 2 or 3 hours. And so to just try it out, you just click host a call. You can easily get started and you can host call ins, live broadcasts, and it's basically live audio over social media. So, with that out of the way, we will jump right into the biggest news of the week, despite the obvious elephant of the room in the room of UFC 227. But that is Conor Khabib. Yesterday, I know a lot of folks saw Conor working out in New York City and looking like he was ready to fight, and he went out and picked up some guy in Central Park and was squatting him over his shoulders. And I mean, things definitely look like they're headed in the direction of a McGregor return. And whether you love him or you hate him, that's fantastic for the sport. And with the UFC just battling rough ratings, they got a new deal with ESPN. They're going to be starting soon. That's a big transition, and the pay-per-views haven't exactly been home runs lately. They need Conor McGregor to come back, like it or not. And Conor Khabib is probably the biggest fight that needs to be made in the male side of MMA right now. I would like to hear your thoughts on this fight, and I know you're not a big Conor McGregor fan, but just the fight itself, the fight itself, and its significance to the division. What do you think?
Now, I mean, we've talked about this on my podcast before, and I finally outed myself as not being a Conor McGregor fan. But you're right; he's great for the sport. This is close to an MMA super fight as you're going to get with two MMA fighters. I mean,
Definitely.
Khabib has, a style that's unparalleled. You go back, you watch his fight with Edson Barboza. A lot of people said Edson's going to cause him some matchup issues, with his kicks, with his range, and his distance management. And Khabib just went in there and mauled him. I mean, excellent wrestling. Conor McGregor's got a great striking pedigree. At the same time, his wrestling's, it's there for sure, and his grappling's good. He's got a decent ground game as well. But I mean, stylistically, this is a matchmaker's dream. Neither one of these guys, hopefully, will be afraid of striking, afraid of, using their own
Yeah.
moves. So it should be
Yeah.
a really good matchup.
Yeah.
And I think,
Absolutely.
like you said, I think we're looking at what, UFC 229 for this matchup, possibly?
Yeah. Well, everybody wants it in October, and you can't blame them for wanting it as soon as possible. But Khabib made a very, very good point the other day by saying that for a fight of this magnitude, October it's not enough time to promote it properly. I mean, it's not Mayweather McGregor magnitude in terms of mainstream popularity, but for the world of MMA, it is. It damn well is. It damn well is McGregor Mayweather. It's bigger,
Yeah,
and it's way bigger, and so we need more time to promote this. That's why I think it'll land in December. I think we'll be lucky to get one fight out of Conor McGregor this year before the calendar turns to 2019, and that's fine. But I really do think that this is the end of McGregor's absence. I don't think we're going to see him scoot off into the sunset again for 2 years and do whatever after this. I think he's going to fight, win or lose. He's going to take big money fights, maybe a trilogy with Diaz after the Khabib fight, maybe something like who knows. But he's not going to go anywhere. Anyways, with that, we like to keep things moving fast. We want to give you guys, a lot of information and a lot of analysis and a lot of opinion in a short amount of time. So, with that, we're going to move over to the UFC 227 title fight between Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw for the bantamweight belt. It is a rematch. And if you know anything about MMA, you know that these guys absolutely despise each other. Um, and legitimate beefs are fantastic in MMA because there's too much it's too much created drama in this sport. So, with everything on the line, bantamweight title rematch, how do you see this fight going, Craig?
So going into their first matchup, I predicted a Dillashaw win. I figured he was going to steamroll right over Garbrandt, and I was met with a lot of opposition. Now, I
Yeah,
mean, sitting in a fan seat back then,
yeah,
I saw it as Garbrandt had a long absence. They were supposed to fight quite a bit earlier. He had back injury issues that sidelined him for quite a long time, and I said, he's going to miss a step out there. And what happened? Garbrandt missed a step. I mean, he's one of the best pure boxers in MMA, period, not just the division. So it causes an issue for TJ in that respect. But TJ's got such a good wrestling pedigree. He trains with the gym training lab. And, if it's any indication from how those fighters have been doing lately, TJ
yeah,
Dillashaw is going to keep his reign going. I mean, we saw his
man, yeah,
teammate,
yeah,
not to sidetrack us very much, but in Bellator, Juan Archuleta, one of his teammates, they showed him before the fight. He had a heart rate monitor on. They had him hooked up to a computer.
yeah, yeah.
These guys are serious about MMA there, and
And I'll
and
let you break. I'll let you
yeah,
break the show's golden rule of nothing but UFC. Like Bellator's like a curse word on this show, but for that purpose, we're gonna let it slide.
oh,
But
thank
no,
you.
you're right. You're right. You're right. They have their shit on point. Like these guys are plugged in. Dwayne Ludwig has gone against the grain. He went up to Denver, did what they did. Team Alpha Male is not happy. I personally was happy. Didn't they just get rid of Justin Buchholz in the last 6, 7
Yeah,
months?
Justin Buchholz is now up in Alaska,
Yeah,
fighting in a
well,
different promotion.
eh,
Has nothing to do with them at all. So there has been
yeah,
some turmoil in that
and
camp.
and good because that was one guy. Justin Buchholz is one guy who needed to get out of there. I didn't like him in that whole thing. He was often an instigator and the biggest mouth
Yeah.
in that whole feud. You'd see him running his mouth on Tough. You see him running his mouth in the first Cody fight. He's talking trash to TJ. I mean, whatever, buddy. You're not going to fight TJ straight up. It's not your beef. Just be quiet. I just shut up. And I'm glad that Uriah Faber. I don't care what he says. He's a legend. He's a living legend, and he's a gift to MMA. And Uriah Faber and captaining Team Alpha Male. They get guys like Northcutt and that over there.
Yep.
That's the direction they want to go. They don't need to be screwing around with guys like Buckholz, things like that. Regardless, the next fight on the docket, and this is the last topic we will cover tonight. This is the rematch with the painfully predictable conclusion, as I said in my article this week for Fansided, between Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo. Now, if Johnson is successful, he will earn his 12th consecutive UFC title defense that will extend his record past Anderson Silva's, which he broke in his last fight in a win over Ray Borg. Uh, you know, I this is one of the reasons I may not buy this pay per view because I am so tired of this, and I feel strongly about where DJ should be fighting outside of the division, and this is just such a pointless rematch. Their first meeting ended in a knockout a little more than 2 years ago. I think DJ knocked Cejudo out in the first round. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it because I have a very predictable opinion. This is boring. I don't want DJ to be in this fight. It's a waste of his abilities. UFC needs him to be a superstar. They need him to make kind of like the same transition again, like I said, my article that Daniel Cormier has made from really talented, fan friendly guy to like kind of now Daniel Cormier is kind of superstar. So
Yep.
that's my opinion. I like to hear what you have to say. And also, who do you think? Do you think Cejudo even has a chance in this fight?
I mean, Cejudo, Olympic caliber wrestler, so he has that going for him. But again, he's a predictable type of fighter. So he lost that fight against DJ. In his next fight, he lost to Joseph Benavidez, and then since then he's picked up a couple of wins. But he's
Yeah,
more or less he's a decision fighter. Now DJ, he has all sorts of different types of wins. He can get the knockout, he can get the submission. You saw him in his last fight against Ray Borg. He kind of toyed with him more or less until he threw out that crazy armbar finish. So as predictable as it is, and I will go with DJ. To your point and to your article, I mean, it would be great to see him move up to 135. The only issue I see with it is the fact that he said on the Joe Rogan MMA Hour at one point that he weighs roughly between 140 and 145 pounds. And I think he'd be totally outmatched and outsized in the bantamweight division.
but what if he think about a rematch with Dominic Cruz? Dominic Cruz is one of the only guys besides Brad Pickett who's ever beat Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah.
Obviously, a fight with Brad Pickett's never going to happen again. So no one wants that fight. Sorry, I love Brad Pickett, but I mean, it's just not going to happen. So a rematch with Dominic Cruz is not only feasible, it's a good idea. And, Dominic Cruz isn't a massive bantamweight. I mean, this guy's like what? Dominic Cruz, he's like maybe what, a buck 45, buck 50 walking around?
Yeah,
I
and I
mean,
mean,
really, I mean, come on. So it's not like, no, I hear you though. If he were in that division, you're right. He would
yeah.
probably get tossed around on the regular.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
like you see certain guys move up and down between the two divisions. Like you've had John Dodson, and another kind of smaller bantamweight that I think of, just size wise and height wise, would be John Lineker. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I mean, DJ kind of stacking up in that division. He's definitely in my probably top 10 of all time. I mean, you don't see many people defend their title that many times. Definitely, he's got lightning in a bottle. He's something special. But for sure, I think the money fight or the fight to make would be a Dominic Cruz one. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, Cruz has been out for quite a while. He's obviously battled a lot of injuries, in the last few years.
yeah,
But I think
yeah.
that fight would be special, and you could sell a pay-per-view on that.
Plus, that would be a great way for DJ to test the waters in a non-title fight
Yeah,
outside of his division. Because throwing him into it, yeah, he can go. Say DJ faces the winner. Ideally, in a perfect world, DJ would face the winner of the Garbrandt Dillashaw rematch, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's the perfect world. I personally would rather see him fight in a rematch with Cruz simply because Cruz beat him before.
yeah.
But I mean, whatever. We're gonna get lucky just to see DJ get out of that division. And it bothered me because when he refused to fight Dillashaw, it seemed to me that, and I know he's a champion, he's proven all these things. It seemed to me that he wanted an easier path to secure that record against a lesser accomplished opponent like Ray Borg, where it was more of a guaranteed path to victory, far more than it would have been where if he would have been putting the title on the line and DJ said he could cut, or TJ Dillashaw said he could cut down to 125, and then, that would have been a much harder fight for Demetrius Johnson to break Anderson Silva's record. Okay, the record's out of the situation. We're done with the record. It's out of the way. Who cares right now? At the end of the day, we have to wonder, honest to God, yes, Demetrius Johnson's an amazing fighter, great champion. But at this point, is his success more of a statement and an indication of his ability as a champion, or the lack of talent and depth in the only division he's spent the last 7 years in?
It's a weak division.
Exactly.
It has to be a weak division. I mean, there's a reason why in the UFC there isn't a women's atomweight division. It's
Yep.
because there's not enough fighters to kind of pull the talent. And it's the same
And,
thing in the UFC with the men's flyweight division. I mean, you
and
look at
it's
the
like the
top.
women's featherweight division too.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
look at the top 10 in the men's flyweight division, and I
Yeah.
mean, on any given day, one of those guys could be a top contender.
Yeah.
There's wins and losses don't mean as much up there in the top
No.
10, top 15. So
No, it doesn't.
you're
It doesn't.
totally right there. Yep.
Well, anyways, with that, we will wrap up episode 1 of the Talktagon. As I said, this message is brought to you by Dialogue. We use Dialogue. We are going to use Dialogue a lot to launch a lot of content, and we're going to be doing it, frequently, multiple times during the week, different MMA type theme shows, and I'm going to be dragging Mr. Craig Allen into this with me, and we're going to be helping each other out long term with this. And as we said, to try Dialogue out, just to host a call, click host a call. You can easily get started. The platform is very self-explanatory. You can host call-ins and do live audio broadcasts over social media. So check out Dialogue as soon as possible. With that, as I said, episode 1 of the Talktagon is in the books. I would like to thank my co-host Greg Allen, and we will speak to you next time.